The Galactic Fleet was an unstoppable force, a union of hundreds of alien species united by the singular goal of galactic conquest. Their warships blotted out the stars like a swarm of locusts, descending upon helpless planets and reducing them to ash. They showed no mercy. Entire civilizations were eradicated, their populations enslaved or wiped from existence. For decades, the Galactic Fleet's reign of terror had been uninterrupted, its victories swift and brutal. And the galaxy was beginning to believe that it would never end. On the eve of another victorious conquest, the fleet's flagship, the Dominion, orbited the ruins of a once thriving human colony in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Commander Zir stood on the bridge, watching as the final traces of human civilization burned beneath him. Earth, long forgotten and presumed destroyed, had become little more than a myth, a faded memory in the fleet's vast database. The human colonies had been obliterated one by one, each world falling with alarming efficiency. The fleet was meticulous in its work, leaving nothing behind: no technology, no weapons, and no survivors. Earth itself, buried at the edge of the solar system, was a place the fleet had long since written off. Zir, a battle-hardened veteran, had led the charge against humanity's outposts with ruthless precision. Yet, even as he stared at the desolation, a strange feeling gnawed at him, an uneasy itch at the back of his mind. It was nothing more than an instinct, a hunch, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The Dominion sensors, advanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever known, picked up an anomaly at the farthest edge of the system. It was faint, nearly undetectable, a signature of energy that didn't belong. The fleet's tech officers quickly dismissed it as a glitch, but Zir wasn't so easily satisfied. He leaned in, scrutinizing the readings with a sharp gaze. The anomaly was there, flickering like a dying star. It wasn't a glitch, it was deliberate. Commander, the chief of security, Estvar, spoke up hesitantly. There's no cause for concern. It's too weak. It could be nothing. Zir's gaze narrowed. Send a recon ship. Now. A small unarmed vessel detached from the Dominion, streaking toward the source of the strange signal. The tension was palpable in the command center as Zir's mind raced. The fleet had been victorious, but could there be something left behind on Earth? Some hidden weapon? Or worse, was there another faction, a force that had somehow evaded the fleet's scrutiny? Moments passed like hours as the recon ship moved closer to the disturbance. Finally, the officer's voice crackled over the comms. Commander Zir, you're not going to believe this. We're detecting a ship. A massive ship. It's human. A ripple of disbelief swept through the bridge. Zir's face remained emotionless, but inside, alarm bells rang. It was impossible. Earth had been left in ruins. There was no way they could have rebuilt anything, let alone a ship of that size. Impossible, Zir muttered under his breath, his voice thick with incredulity. Humanity was wiped out. No survivors, no fleets. But the sensors didn't lie. The readings were real. It was a ship, massive, brimming with energy, and it was heading straight toward the Galactic Fleet. Zir's mind raced as he grappled with the impossible reality unfolding before him. The human colonies had been decimated, Earth's defenses obliterated. Yet here, at the edge of the galaxy, something was emerging from the ashes. Something ancient, something human. In that moment, the commander realized that his greatest victory had been a lie, and humanity, once thought extinct, had returned. But this time, they would not be weak. They would not be helpless. They were coming for revenge. As the Dominion sensors continued to track the mysterious human ship, Commander Zir could no longer ignore the growing sense of urgency gnawing at him. His instincts, honed over countless battles, told him that this wasn't just a fluke. This was something far more dangerous, something that Earth, a planet the fleet had long written off as irrelevant, had managed to pull from the depths of its forgotten history. Back on Earth, deep within the solar system, the hum of engines broke the silence of the moon's dark side. In a massive facility hidden beneath layers of rock and miles of debris, a fleet of colossal ships stood in their final stages of preparation. These ships, unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, were humanity's last hope, a desperate gamble to reclaim their place in the stars. The Dreadnoughts, as they were called, were not simply warships. They were living, breathing monuments to human ingenuity and survival. The largest of them, the Valor, was the pinnacle of Earth's engineering. Over a decade of secret work, hidden from the watchful eyes of the Galactic fleet, had gone into its creation. The ship's hull was made from a new, experimental alloy, resistant to the advanced weaponry of alien forces. Its weaponry was built from technology scavenged from old Earth warships, augmented with breakthroughs that no other species in the galaxy had even dreamed of. But the true power of the Dreadnoughts was not in their size or their firepower. It was in the human spirit that fueled them. As the Valor's engines roared to life for the first time, an entire generation of soldiers and engineers stood at attention, their hearts pounding with anticipation. These ships weren't just a testament to human survival. They were a declaration. The galaxy would soon learn the cost of underestimating humanity. On the bridge of the Valor, Captain Adrian Klein, one of the most decorated officers in the United Earth Fleet, stood tall, eyes locked on the expansive view of space through the ship's massive viewing bay. He watched as the stars stretched ahead, the final frontier to reclaim. Behind him, the crew prepared the ship's systems for its first combat mission. "Status report," Klein ordered, his voice calm but determined. "Engine systems are online," Lieutenant Hayes responded, eyes flicking over the controls. "All weapons primed. We're ready to engage." Klein nodded, his jaw set in determination. And Earth's final message. "Transmission complete. The galaxy knows we're coming." A sharp chill ran down his spine. The knowledge that the fleet, those who had enslaved and destroyed his people, had no idea what was heading their way was both exhilarating and terrifying. But there was no turning back now. Earth's Dreadnoughts were the last hope, and they were going to make their mark. The Valor's engines thrummed with power as it broke free from the lunar surface, its massive hull cutting through the atmosphere with ease. Behind it, the Vigilance, a sister ship, equally as powerful and deadly, followed in formation. The two ships were humanity's only answer to the Galactic fleet's oppression. Every member of the crew understood what was at stake. As the two Dreadnoughts moved deeper into space, their course set for the heart of the Galactic fleet, the silence of space was broken by the hum of their weapons charging. The human forces weren't just heading to battle. They were sending a message to the universe. The fleet might have conquered, destroyed, and enslaved, but now humanity was coming for them with a fury they had never known. And this time, it was no longer about survival. It was about vengeance. But Zir, still far from Earth's orbit, had no idea what was about to hit him. He would learn soon enough, and when he did, the fleet would face a reckoning unlike any it had ever imagined. As the human fleet neared the Galactic fleet's territory, the vast emptiness of space became a battleground. The stars seemed to fade away as the Valor and Vigilance surged forward, their weapons charged and their engines roaring with power. The recon ship's warning about the approaching human ships was now a distant memory, but its importance became clear the moment the First Fleet scout ship appeared on the edge of the Galactic fleet's radar. Commander Zir stood at the heart of the Dominion's command center, still baffled by the mystery of the humans' sudden reappearance. His fleet had swept the galaxy clean of every possible human presence. The Valor and Vigilance's presence on his scanners could not be real. But as the moment stretched into seconds, his uncertainty quickly gave way to cold, calculating resolve. He would not be caught off guard again. "Target those ships and prepare to engage," Zir ordered, his voice icy as he turned toward his tactical officer. "Make sure this is just another false alarm." His fleet had faced countless enemies in the past, and none had ever posed a real challenge. The human resistance, though brave, had been no different from the rest, weak, fractured, and ultimately doomed. They had nothing that could rival the might of the Galactic fleet. But when the first energy signatures from the Dreadnoughts' weapons fired, the entire command deck went silent. The Valor released a torrent of plasma beams that ripped through the nearest fleet ships, evaporating their shields with terrifying precision. One by one, the first few alien ships disintegrated in an instant, their hulks scattering across space. Zir's eyes widened. This was no mere human defense. It was an offense, an attack of the highest caliber. The Valor's weapons were beyond anything they had seen before, devastatingly powerful, fast, and relentless. The Vigilance, following closely behind, unleashed its own barrage of destruction, decimating an entire wing of scout ships with its well-aimed fire. "Report," Zir barked, now visibly rattled. His tactical officers scrambled, unable to keep up with the rate of destruction. "We've lost 3 wings of ships already. Our shields are down to 40%. "Impossible," Zir muttered under his breath, his fists clenched in anger. He had not prepared for this kind of response. His fleet had been dominant for so long, but now, with the unexpected strength of these human ships, everything was changing. The Dreadnoughts were no longer merely human warships. They were fighting machines of the highest order, vessels not just designed for battle, but powered by the unrelenting spirit of a species that had been pushed to the brink of annihilation and had risen from the ashes. The Galactic fleet's once invincible armada had become nothing more than targets in the firestorm. "Launch all remaining fighters," Zir ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "We cannot allow them to breach the outer defenses. They must be stopped." But it was already too late. As the Valor turned toward the heart of the fleet's command ships, its massive guns opened fire again, this time focusing on the flagship, the Dominion. A volley of energy blasts pierced the fleet's defenses, hitting their shields with an intensity that shook the entire flagship to its core. "Shields at 10%. The Dominion is under attack," cried the tactical officer. Zir's eyes narrowed. He had underestimated humanity's resolve and their power. Earth's forces had not only come back from extinction, but they had come back with a vengeance, a force he could not have anticipated. On the Valor, Captain Klein watched as the battle unfolded, his pulse steady despite the chaos. His crew was synchronized, working as one unit, pushing the Dreadnought to its limits. This was just the beginning. Zir's forces would not be able to keep up for long. The war had begun, and there would be no turning back. "Keep pushing forward," Klein ordered, his voice unwavering. "We're taking back what's ours." The battle raged on, with humanity's fleet pressing deeper into the heart of the Galactic fleet's forces. For the first time in centuries, the fleet found itself on the defensive, struggling to hold back an unexpected enemy that had come out of nowhere, out of the void, and was now striking back with a ferocity that would change the galaxy forever. The battle between the Valor and the Galactic fleet raged on, with humanity's ships cutting through their enemies like a storm tearing through dry timber. The fleet, usually composed of hundreds of ships working in flawless coordination, was now in disarray. The once dominant fleet was reeling, and Commander Zir, who had once looked down on the human species as insignificant, now faced the bitter reality that the unexpected reemergence of Earth was something he wasn't prepared for. "Status report." Zir barked from his command chair, his voice tight with fury. "We've lost over 20 cruisers already, Commander," his tactical officer reported, his voice strained. "The Valor is unstoppable. Its weaponry is cutting through our fleets like nothing we've encountered before. Shields are failing across the board." Zir clenched his fists. This was not how it was supposed to go. Earth had been nothing more than a faint echo of a once proud civilization, obliterated by the might of the fleet. Yet now, they had returned, armed, organized, and hell-bent on revenge. The sheer power and precision of their dreadnoughts were beyond anything he could have imagined. "Prepare the Dominion for immediate retaliation," Zir commanded. His eyes flared with intensity as he stared at the holographic image of the battlefield, where the Valor was systematically dismantling his fleet, one ship at a time. We can't allow them to get any closer to our core systems. If we lose the Dominion, we lose everything. His fleet, though vast, was starting to crumble under the assault. Desperation was taking hold of the crew, and Zir could feel the weight of their fear pressing on his shoulders. He had never seen his forces so uncoordinated, so vulnerable. The humans' tactics were unpredictable, their firepower overwhelming. Zir needed to turn the tide, and fast. "Activate the secondary fleet," he ordered with a cold edge to his voice. "We'll throw everything we have at them. If they want a war, they will get it." Far above the battlefield, the Dominion began to deploy its secondary armada, thousands of smaller, heavily armed warships designed to overwhelm the Dreadnoughts through sheer numbers. These ships, equipped with more conventional weaponry and faster speeds, were meant to swarm and break the human vessels' defenses. The Valor and Vigilance had their own advantages, but they were not invincible. The humans had long relied on strategic thinking and adaptability, and now they would have to prove they could stand up to the onslaught of the Galactic fleet's fury. On board the Valor, Captain Klein watched as Zir's fleet began to regroup. The tactical screens flashed with incoming targets, and his crew prepared for the inevitable counterattack. The air on the bridge was thick with tension, but Klein remained resolute. Earth's fleet had the upper hand for now, but this was far from over. "Lieutenant Hayes, how many ships are we facing?" Klein asked, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "Too many, sir," Hayes replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "At least 500 ships in the secondary fleet. They're moving fast." Klein's jaw tightened. This was the moment of truth. The Dreadnoughts were powerful, but they were not invincible. The Valor and Vigilance couldn't take on that many enemies without risk of being overwhelmed. "Prepare the fleet for evasive maneuvers," Klein ordered, gripping the edge of his command chair. "We'll hit them where they're weakest. We're not here to fight on their terms." The crew worked in perfect sync as they scrambled to avoid the incoming swarm of enemy ships. The Valor darted and weaved between enemy cruisers, its massive weapons firing at will. But Klein knew they needed more than just firepower to win this. They needed precision. "Deploy the EMP pulses," Klein commanded. "Take out their smaller ships' navigational systems. We'll hit them where they're most vulnerable." Across the battlefield, Earth's ships released a series of EMP pulses that ripped through the secondary fleet, disrupting their guidance systems. Smaller ships collided into one another in a chaotic fireball-filled spectacle as the EMP disrupted communication and targeting systems. The Galactic fleet's precision was now compromised, and Earth's forces seized the opportunity to strike back with unmatched brutality. Zir's face twisted with rage as he saw his fleet beginning to falter. The Valor and Vigilance were relentless, slipping between his ships like shadows, striking when and where they least expected it. But even in the face of disaster, the commander would not back down. He barked orders for his fleet to regroup, to push back with everything they had. "This isn't over, human," Zir muttered through clenched teeth. "This will be your grave." But Klein, watching the chaos unfold before him, knew one thing for certain. Humanity had already won the first battle. And with every passing minute, Earth's fleet was proving it wasn't just a flash in the pan. It was a force that would reshape the galaxy forever. The battle in deep space had become a chaos of light and fire. Every ship in the Galactic fleet, large or small, was locked in a deadly dance with Earth's Dreadnoughts. The Valor and Vigilance tore through the Galactic fleet's lines, cutting down enemy warships with unrelenting precision, while smaller human ships swarmed the periphery, using their agility to disable and overwhelm the much larger, slower alien vessels. Zir stood at the command center of the Dominion, his heart racing. His once mighty fleet was being crushed under the weight of humanity's unexpected return. Every order he gave felt like an echo of desperation, each command more frantic than the last. The secondary fleet had faltered under the EMP pulses, and now his forces were scattered, vulnerable to the brutal efficiency of Earth's forces. "Sir, The vigilance has penetrated our outer perimeter. The ship's weapons have breached our shields. One of the tactical officers reported, his voice tinged with panic. The Dominion is the last remaining vessel with full operational status. We can't afford to lose it. Zir clenched his fists, staring at the tactical display. Humanity's ships were relentless, calculating, and worst of all, they knew how to exploit weaknesses in the Galactic fleet's tactics. What had once been a surefire path to victory had become a nightmare. Pull the Dominion back. We need to regroup or we'll lose it all, Zir growled. He wasn't prepared to let his pride, his flagship, fall so easily. The Dominion was the heart of his command, and without it, the rest of the fleet would fall into disarray. While Zir's flagship began to retreat, the remaining fleet ships, disoriented and decimated, were scattered throughout the battlefield, each one trying to fend off the relentless assault of human ships. Yet no matter how many ships they lost, the humans pressed on, striking with a ferocity and speed that shocked the entire Galactic fleet. On the bridge of the Valor, Captain Klein watched as the battle unfolded. Earth's forces had achieved something unthinkable, pushing the Galactic fleet back into a corner. His mind raced with strategy, always thinking 2 steps ahead. The battle was far from over, but they had already broken through the fleet's first line of defense. "Prepare for Phase 2, Klein ordered. "We've got them on the ropes, but we need to hit them harder. Deploy the secondary dreadnoughts. Let's end this." Hayes, his weapons officer, nodded, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. "Initiating deployment sequence for the second wave of dreadnoughts. We're launching the Judgment and Excalibur now. They'll reinforce the attack." Humanity's fleet had already made its mark, but now it was time to finish what they'd started. Klein knew that the Galactic fleet's forces were on the brink of collapse, but they still had numbers, and that made them dangerous. The humans would need every weapon, every ounce of power, to drive them back once and for all. As the Judgment and Excalibur dreadnoughts materialized in space, their massive forms dwarfed everything around them. Each one was a marvel of human engineering, brimming with advanced weaponry and defensive capabilities designed for this exact moment. They would be the decisive factor in the war. "Lock onto the Dominion's trajectory," Klein ordered, watching the retreating flagship of the Galactic fleet. "It's retreating, but it's still vulnerable. We have one chance to stop it before it can regroup." The 2 new dreadnoughts unleashed a barrage of missiles and plasma beams, targeting the Dominion with deadly precision. The Dominion's shields flickered as the first wave of strikes landed, but they held, barely. Zir's flagship was heavily damaged, but not destroyed, as it continued to retreat, now desperately trying to escape the humans' grasp. "Shields are failing on the Dominion," one of Zir's officers announced, his voice full of dread. "We can't keep up this retreat much longer. If we don't stabilize the ship soon, we'll lose everything." Zir's knuckles whitened as he gripped the armrests of his command chair. There was no question now. The tide of the battle had shifted. His fleet, once so proud and unbeatable, was collapsing in the face of humanity's unexpected resurgence. "Activate the Dominion's emergency cloaking systems," Zir ordered, his voice now laced with frustration and resignation. "We're pulling out. We'll regroup in the outer systems. We need time to rebuild." The Dominion's engines flared as the massive cloaking device engaged, rendering the flagship invisible. Zir's eyes narrowed as the human ships fired blindly into the void, but the flagship had already vanished. For the moment, the Dominion had escaped. Captain Klein watched as the Dominion vanished from the battlefield, a mixture of satisfaction and frustration washing over him. "We've wounded them badly, but this isn't over," he muttered to himself. "The fleet may retreat now, but they'll return with more reinforcements." It was only the beginning of the war. And this time, humanity would not simply survive, they would dominate. The retreat of the Dominion did not mark the end of the conflict. It only delayed the inevitable. Captain Klein knew better than to think the fleet would simply roll over and surrender. The Galactic fleet, though wounded, would not give up easily. As Earth's ships regrouped in the aftermath of their first major victory, the shadows of something far darker loomed over the horizon. Back in the depths of the Galactic Fleet's command center, Commander Zero paced furiously. His flagship had escaped, but the price had been steep. His forces had been decimated, their morale shattered. He would not let Earth's rise go unchallenged. He would not let this human uprising rewrite the history of the galaxy. Reinforcements are en route, Zero declared, his voice seething with cold rage. He turned toward his officers, his eyes like burning embers. We will make them regret ever daring to strike us. For weeks, the Galactic Fleet had been silently preparing their counteroffensive, gathering new forces from various sectors of the galaxy. A new armada, far larger and more powerful than anything humanity had faced before, was on its way to Earth's doorstep. Zero's plan was clear: overwhelm Earth's ships with sheer numbers, using the vast resources of the Galactic Fleet to crush their enemies before they could regroup and mount another attack. Prepare the Exodus and Requiem-class ships for launch, Zero ordered. These ships carry the latest in alien weaponry and enhanced shields. With these, we'll tear apart the human fleet. They won't even know what hit them. The Exodus-class ships were the flagship vessels of the new fleet reinforcements, massive ships capable of deploying thousands of smaller fighters and drones. Their main weapons included an energy cannon strong enough to obliterate entire planets. The Requiem, meanwhile, was a weapons platform designed to engage the most advanced dreadnoughts. Its firepower could level cities and decimate entire fleets. Humanity had seen strength, but they had yet to see the true power of the Galactic Fleet. On the Valor, Captain Klein surveyed the updated intelligence from his fleet's scouts. Earth had won the first battle, but now they were facing a storm. The latest reports indicated the arrival of Zero's reinforcements, ships unlike anything they had seen before. He could feel the weight of the situation settle onto his shoulders. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a battle for control of the galaxy itself. Captain, the Exodus fleet is inbound. They're moving fast, Lieutenant Hayes warned. If they maintain their course, they'll be in our orbit within the next 12 hours. Klein's jaw tightened. They had precious little time to prepare. The Valor's sensors detected the approaching armada. Massive, threatening, and relentless. It was the full force of the Galactic Fleet, mobilized in retaliation for the humiliation they'd endured. Earth's forces had made enemies of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and Zero was not a commander to back down from a challenge. We'll have to outmaneuver them, Klein said firmly. The Valor isn't invincible, and neither are we. But we got one thing they don't: our ingenuity. We've faced impossible odds before, and we'll do it again. Hayes nodded. What are the orders, sir? Prepare the fleet, Klein replied, his voice steady. We're going to use their size against them. We'll spread out, create false targets, and strike from unpredictable angles. It's not about brute force. It's about precision. In the next few hours, humanity's fleet mobilized, retreating into Earth's orbit and dispersing into smaller, harder-to-target formations. The plan was to make the Galactic Fleet believe they had more ships than they actually did, drawing Zero's forces into a trap. If they could wear down the reinforcements with guerrilla tactics, they might stand a chance. But Klein knew that time was running out. The Exodus fleet was a juggernaut of unprecedented scale, and while they could evade and strike from the shadows, eventually, the weight of the Galactic Fleet's numbers would tell. Earth's forces couldn't sustain this hit and run strategy forever. As the human ships spread out, the Valor's sensors detected a massive gravitational shift, the kind of anomaly only a fleet of this size could create. Zero was coming. Earth's worst fears were being realized. The Galactic Fleet had arrived in full force. The countdown had begun, and the battle for the future of the galaxy was about to reach its most dangerous phase. The air on the Valor's bridge was thick with tension. The hum of the engines was almost drowned out by the sound of boots echoing as officers scrambled, preparing for the impending storm. Captain Klein stood at the center of the command deck, his eyes fixed on the screens that projected the incoming threat. The Exodus fleet had arrived, and they were closing in fast. The scale of the Galactic fleet's reinforcements was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Massive ships, each more than a match for the Dreadnoughts, advanced toward Earth's fleet with brutal intent. The Exodus-class ships, towering giants in space, were flanked by smaller ships that moved in perfect formation. The fleet was like a wall of death, and Earth's forces were standing at the precipice. "Lieutenant Hayes, status report," Klein said, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of the situation. "We're in range, Captain," Hayes replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "We have multiple incoming targets. It's not just a fleet. They're deploying drones, fighters, everything." "We're outnumbered," Klein acknowledged, but his voice remained firm. "But we've faced worse odds before, and we'll do it again. All ships, prepare for Phase 3 of the plan. We need to hit them hard, hit them fast, and keep them guessing." Hayes nodded, tapping in the final sequence. "Phase 3 engaged, Captain. We're spreading out into the outer rings of Earth's orbit, using the asteroid fields as cover." Klein's strategy was simple: use the asteroid field as a natural defense. The Galactic fleet would struggle to maneuver through the debris field, while Earth's ships, faster and more agile, would be able to strike from unpredictable angles. The sheer size of the Exodus fleet, though impressive, would work against them in this environment. The Galactic fleet had never fought in conditions like these, and Klein intended to use that to his advantage. On the Dominion, Zir seethed with frustration as his fleet advanced into the asteroid field. The maneuver had been expected. The humans had always been resourceful. Still, he had confidence in the power of his forces. The Exodus ships were more than enough to turn the tide of the battle. The battle strategies that Earth had employed thus far had worked to some extent, but no longer would the humans be able to outmaneuver his superior forces. "Activate drone swarms," Zir ordered. "We'll clear the path. They think they can hide among the rocks. We'll crush them like insects." Thousands of drones, sleek and deadly, poured out from the Exodus ships, swarming toward the asteroid belt. They buzzed like a cloud of locusts, each one equipped with energy disruptors designed to shatter the human ship shields and disable their propulsion systems. The drones were fast, relentless, and unforgiving. They would score every inch of the battlefield, leaving no hiding place for Earth's fleet. On board the Valor, Klein watched as the drone swarms appeared on his radar. "Here they come," he said grimly. "All ships, engage evasive maneuvers. Don't let them get a lock on you. We need to destroy those drones before they tear us apart." Earth's ships split into smaller formations, darting through the asteroid field with incredible precision. They fired back at the drones, taking out clusters with well-placed shots, but for every drone destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Valor shuddered as one of the drone swarms collided with its shields, sending a violent tremor through the ship. But the ship held strong. The Vigilance wasn't so lucky. A group of drones managed to breach its outer defenses, causing a violent explosion in its aft section. The ship's crew scrambled to stabilize the ship, but the damage was done. The Vigilance's weapons were offline, and its engines were crippled. Still, it wasn't out yet. The crew fought back with every ounce of strength, using their remaining firepower to engage the drones in a desperate last stand. "Vigilance is down," reported one of Klein's officers. "They're reporting catastrophic damage. We've lost communication." Klein's jaw tightened. The Vigilance had been one of Earth's most powerful ships, but now it was incapacitated. The loss stung, but there was no time for grief. They still had a fleet to protect, and an enemy to defeat. "Don't let their sacrifice be in vain," Klein ordered. "Focus fire on the drones. Clear a path for the rest of the fleet. We cannot let them take us down one ship at a time." As the Valor and the remaining ships of Earth's fleet continued to fight, a sudden shift occurred in the battlefield. A massive energy surge erupted from the Exodus flagship, The Abyssal Titan. A devastating energy cannon fired, unleashing a beam that cut through the asteroid field like a knife through butter. The blast vaporized asteroids in its path, forcing Earth's ships to scatter or risk being destroyed in a single shot. "Brace for impact," Klein shouted. "They're not holding back anymore. We need to counter their fire." The Valor's shields flared, barely holding against the intensity of the Abyssal Titan's attack. Earth's forces were being pushed to their limits, and the battle was now a deadly race to survive. But Klein refused to back down. His mind was clear, his resolve unwavering. This was it, the tipping point. Earth's forces had given everything to get here, and they would not falter now. "We fight to the last," Klein muttered under his breath. "We're not going to lose." The battle had reached its boiling point. Earth's fleet, now severely outgunned and outnumbered, was caught in a violent maelstrom of energy and destruction. The Exodus fleet, led by the Abyssal Titan, loomed above them, a force of annihilation. Zir's drones were everywhere, swarming like angry wasps, while the Dominion hovered in the distance, waiting for its moment to strike. Captain Klein stood at the center of the Valor's bridge, his face illuminated by the flashing lights of the damage reports. The ship was battered, its hull scorched by plasma beams and drone impacts. His officers worked furiously at their stations, pushing Earth's fleet to its limits as the Abyssal Titan prepared to fire another devastating shot. "We can't take another hit like that," shouted Lieutenant Hayes, her voice tight with urgency. "Shields are nearly gone. If we don't act fast, we're done for." Klein's mind raced, the weight of their situation crashing down on him. His first instinct was to retreat, to withdraw and save the remaining fleet. But that option had vanished long ago. There was nowhere to run. Humanity had come this far, not just to survive, but to win. They had to stand their ground, no matter the cost. "We're not running," Klein said firmly. "We fight." He turned to the tactical officer. "Order the fleet to form up around the Valor. We're going to give them everything we've got. All ships, prepare for a direct assault on the Abyssal Titan. It's our only shot at breaking their momentum." Hayes looked at Klein in disbelief. "Captain, you're asking them to give everything," Klein interrupted, his voice unwavering. "The Exodus fleet is on the verge of crushing us. If we don't take down the Abyssal Titan now, there will be no humanity left to fight. This is our moment, the last one." His words carried a finality that silenced any objections. As the fleet gathered around the Valor, the remaining human ships moved into position. The Valor was heavily damaged, its weapon systems barely functioning, but it still had enough firepower to make one last assault count. The Abyssal Titan fired again, sending a massive energy beam crashing through space. The asteroid field disintegrated in its wake, and one of Earth's ships, the Wrath of Earth, was completely obliterated. Klein's heart tightened. They were losing ships, friends, comrades, but there was no turning back. The Valor darted forward, weaving through the chaos of the battlefield. "Target the Abyssal Titan's primary energy core," Klein barked. "We need to disable it, or we won't survive another strike." The crew of the Valor worked in perfect synchronization. Missiles and laser fire streaked across space, striking the massive hull of the Abyssal Titan, but its shields held firm. It was only when the fleet's ships began to coordinate their attacks, each ship striking from different angles, that the first crack appeared in the Titan's defenses. "We've got a breach," Lieutenant Hayes shouted. "The core's exposed. Now's our chance." Klein's pulse raced. They had done it. They'd managed to penetrate the Titan's outer defenses. But it wasn't enough to just hit it once. They needed to destroy it before the Titan could retaliate. "Activate the Valor's special payload," Klein ordered. "We've been saving it for this moment. I want all remaining power diverted to the torpedo bay." "This is a one-shot deal." The crew scrambled to execute the order. The Valor's engines groaned under the strain, pushing the ship beyond its limits as it accelerated toward the Abyssal Titan, now vulnerable. As the Valor closed in, The remaining fleet moved in to distract the Titan's defenses. Missiles and laser fire continued to rain down, drawing the Titan's attention. Earth's forces were buying time. Time for Klein to make the shot. "Captain, you're insane," Hayes muttered, but she knew he was right. There was no other option. The Valor fired its final, most powerful torpedo, an experimental weapon designed to pierce even the most advanced shields. It hurtled toward the abyssal Titan, and in that moment, everything seemed to slow. For a heartbeat, the universe held its breath. The torpedo struck. A massive explosion shook the battlefield, brighter than a supernova. The abyssal Titan's energy core exploded in a violent eruption of light and sound, sending shockwaves across the entire system. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to flicker out. Zir watched in disbelief from the Dominion, as his flagship's sensors registered the destruction of his prized warship. The abyssal Titan had been the cornerstone of his strategy, and now it was gone, obliterated in a single final blow. "No," Zir shouted, his eyes wide with fury. "This can't be happening. They've destroyed my fleet." The Valor and the remaining human ships did not wait for confirmation. With the Titan destroyed, the Galactic fleet's morale shattered. The remaining reinforcements hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. It was over. The battle was won. Klein stood at the helm, his gaze unwavering as he watched the remnants of the Exodus fleet begin to retreat. His heart pounded in his chest, but there was no time for celebration. The war wasn't over, but humanity had taken a decisive step toward victory. As Earth's fleet reformed, Klein allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had done the impossible. Against all odds, humanity had proven its worth. "We've won today," Klein said softly, his voice filled with a quiet pride. "But the war isn't over. Not yet." And as Earth's forces prepared for the long road ahead, they knew one thing for certain: humanity would never back down.